wonderful Saturday morning.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining all the way from Lagos. All right, so let's just quickly get into it. Breastfeeding, a number of people, what comes to their mind when they hear breastfeeding is literally breastfeeding. But let's talk about exclusive breastfeeding, because different people seem to have the different definitions to it. And I tell you why. So there was a long time ago, that I was talking with somebody who is a breastfeeding mom, supposedly exclusively breastfeeding mom. And she was feeding the baby water, a baby that was not up to 3 months old. So what exactly is the definition of exclusive breastfeeding?
Okay, so a very important concept, that you've brought up. And you'd be surprised, the percentage of people that actually get it wrong when it comes to the notions of what exclusive breastfeeding actually is. The WHO defines exclusive breastfeeding as the process in which an infant is fed with human breast milk for the first 6 months of life without addition of water. The child will be fed on demand, night and day, and at least 8 times a day. That's the full definition, excluding medications. So they can actually take medications and it's still considered as breastfeeding. But once water is added, once agbo is added, once honey is added at the naming ceremony, it is no longer exclusive breastfeeding. So we've got to pay attention to all that. As a matter of fact, Nigeria's breastfeeding rates would have been higher. Our exclusive breastfeeding rate is just about 30%. And that's not because Nigerian mothers are not breastfeeding, but they're not breastfeeding exclusively, because a lot of mothers feel like once the child has eaten, then they should wash the breast milk down with water, like as if it was a whole bowl of semovita that they ate. But, water is not required if you are doing exclusive breastfeeding.
But why? Why water? Why should you not take water after breastfeeding?
Okay, so breast milk is about 80% water. So if you were to express breast milk and then leave it in a clear container or in a clear vessel on the table to stand for a few hours, the solid parts of the breast milk will settle down, and you'd realize very quickly that breast milk is 80% water. And so breast milk has so much water that extra water is absolutely unrequired. And the problem is, you just never know what the cap or the cap maximum amount of water you should give the baby is, because the mothers usually don't quantify this, and they end up filling the baby's small tummies with so much water that there's barely any space for the breast milk, and so they might lose weight. The excess water might dilute their blood, and they might have low sodium levels that might cause convulsions and all that horrible things. So it really is a no-no for a mother to give babies water.
While you were defining exclusive breastfeeding, you said breastfeeding the baby available on demand. In short, the breast milk has to be available on demand at least 8 times a day. And that brings me to one of the things that has been said about breastfeeding. Some say it is very difficult. In fact, they say exclusive breastfeeding is very hard to achieve. Is this really true?
I think everybody's experience is varied, in the sense that some people find it extremely difficult and some people will find it that they are doing it with the greatest ease. What one would say is that nobody's experience should be minimized. So if a mother has said that exclusive breastfeeding is difficult, one needs to pay attention to what she's saying and find out why this is the situation, because breastfeeding actually should be easy, but that really is not the case in all situations, because sometimes mothers don't have help. In this situation where a mother is just by herself and neither of her parents, so neither her mother or her mother-in-law can come for the omugo, and she's just by herself, doesn't have help, and then she has 4 older children that are really tightly packed together in terms of age, 3, 4, 5, as a matter of fact, 1, 2, 3. And then she has an infant, and, the husband isn't really helping out, and, she's barely getting any rest. Yes, in such a situation, I imagine that exclusive breastfeeding would be difficult. And not to minimize that, because, that's a social circumstance that can make exclusive breastfeeding difficult. But there are some mothers who have all the support in the world, and yet they still find it difficult to exclusively breastfeed, because of anxiety, fear, postpartum blues. about, the care of their children. And this cuts across social and economic situations whereby mother can find breastfeeding difficult simply because she feels inadequate to do it, because this is a whole human being that has come out of your body, and your body has undergone so many changes. Your hormones are up and down. But support is absolutely everything when it comes to trying to establish or achieve exclusive breastfeeding, whereby you need family support of people like lactation nurses. In other places, they even have, community health nurses come to the home and ask you questions about how it can be made easy. Employers have got to help out. Longer maternity leave, up to 6 months, paid in full. Okay. Yes. And then things like creches, when they do resume, things like creches or daycares in the hospital, in the workplace, as well as opportunities for mothers to go and express or breastfeed, just help the journey become a bit easier.
On the part of the husband, what will support look like?
On the part of the husband, support looks like, first of all, learning what it is that your wife is going to be going through. So I can beat my chest and say that I can count the number of times I've seen a husband come to antenatal clinic. It's always good for husbands to attend at least one of the antenatal clinics. Let them sit down with the mothers and listen to the antenatal clinic lecture being given. Say, madam, this is how you are going to hold your breast. This is how you are going to hold your baby. And then so that he knows what's coming, and so when the baby arrives, he knows what to expect. The mother shouldn't have to be the one to comfort the baby all the time. So when the baby is crying and you are sure that it isn't hunger, maybe the baby has just fed, or it's a wet diaper, or it's a soiled diaper, the father can actually do that. I did a post the other day about how, a father was offered, the World Cup after a successful change of diaper at the end of 4 years. So learn how to change a diaper. If your wife once burns jollof in the middle of the night, that happens more during pregnancy. Get her those things that she needs. Speak with her, ask her what the issues might be. Try to help out in any way that's possible. So just cuddle the baby, be present. I think that's the summary.
Thank you very much. We take our first break there, and when we come back, we will still be talking the topic of breastfeeding, dispelling the myths and telling you the fact. You're listening to Soul Food here on Smooth 98.1. 8.1.
Fifi,
we have a minute break.
Okay.
Babe life in a little bit. My ultra slim retina display laptop from Ultimate will be here in about 3 hours.
On Ultimate, you can own now and pay later with flexible payment options of up to 24 months. The best part is there is 0 interest on all products. So shop
smooth in Ikoyi
and more.
VI.
www.ultimate.com.
Yeah. Okay.
All small.
So the next time you come inside the studio,
easy.
I will try.
Your lifestyle and the state of your health.
Driving in Lagos is so unpleasant. God knows.
Saturdays, the roads are always free on Saturdays.
Yes, I know. Regardless, like I genuinely don't like driving. It's like if I can avoid this, if I can trek to BI, I'd rather do the trekking.
We all should just go to our village and let Lagos breathe. So we rotate who will stay in Lagos for time.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Whenever people invite me to say Ikorodu, I'm having a function at Ikorodu.
That's very correct. Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's all about your health and wellness this morning, and Soul Food is the show. You're listening to Breakfast in Bed, which runs from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. And my guest this morning is the Consultant Paediatrician, Dr. Ayodele Renner. And we are talking about breastfeeding. He's joining me via Zoom, but right now you can see his face and my face on YouTube, youtube.com/Smooth 91 FM Lagos. He's waving at you. So quickly go there, youtube.com/Smooth 91 FM Lagos. But you can ask your question in the middle of this conversation. So send your questions to 0809-444-0981, or you can call the number 01-448-9981. Before the break, we talked about what exclusive breastfeeding is, what it is not, and you do not need water while you exclusively breastfeeding your child. We also said that support can from the husband to the wife during breastfeeding can look like you attending antenatal clinic, because it's not just the woman who's having the baby. You're also having the baby. She didn't put it there alone. Okay, that's my own extra. So back to it. One of the reasons, which shouldn't be a reason, that some people do not breastfeed is that they say breastfeeding makes the breast sag. Is that true?
Okay, it's a myth. There's no truth or evidence to prove that breast milk or breastfeeding, exclusively breastfeeding, will make one's breasts dangle. Some people actually even have a rather, saggy breasts even before they begin to breastfeed. So what are those ones going to now do? So it's now reach the floor. I'm not understanding. But but the point is, age happens to everyone, and the same way in which your skin generally will sag as you get older, everyone's breasts will eventually, fall. As Nigerians put it, the breast will fall. So that will happen regardless of whether you exclusively breastfeed or not. And so don't let the fear of one's breast sagging be the reason why you will deny exclusive breastfeeding to that wonderful infant. So it's a myth. Your breasts will remain as perky as they are supposed to be until their time comes, and there's nothing you can do to prevent that from happening.
Not all those firming lotions that you sell on Instagram.
No. Those things, they are not proven. They are not evidence-based, and so there's no evidence really that they actually help the breast to be firm, or firmer in any way. So no, it's yet to be proven that those things have any real effect.
Just in case you have that idea in your head, that is to tell you to put it to bed. Please do not waste your money on any Instagram vendor telling you that they can firm up your breast through one oil or lotion or the other. Save your money. All right, so another one is that some people say not all mothers can produce enough breast milk that will feed their children, especially when they're exclusively breastfeeding. Is there any truth to this?
There are some medical conditions that actually make breastfeeding a little bit more difficult than it needs to be, such that milk production is significantly impaired. There's a hormone that we call prolactin, and if mothers don't have the adequate levels of that hormone, prolactin, then it really can cause a reduction in breast milk production. But that's a very rare situation and a very rare instance. It's not a very common condition. So the vast majority of mothers are able to produce breast milk for their children quite fine, without any issues. So if one finds, and these are the ways by which one can know if one is producing enough breast milk. So the infant actually has up to, starting from the 6th day of life, the infant will have 6 or more wet diapers in a day. That shows that the breast milk production is actually adequate. When the child is breastfed, even though this is not entirely 100%, because there are some babies who have very large, quite frankly, terrifying appetites. So you can breastfeed them now, and really, if they are breastfed adequately, they really should not ask to be fed again for the next 3 hours on the average. But there are some babies who might feed after 2 hours. But if you find out that, as soon as you remove the baby from the breast, the baby still seems unsatisfied, then it could be that your production is actually not adequate. Also, the rate of weight gain for the infant is actually very important. And of course, you won't weigh the child every day. But if you find out that maybe between your 6 weeks immunization and your 10 weeks immunization, they do the weight and it hasn't risen, the healthcare professional will be able to tell you this, and it hasn't risen to a certain appreciable level, then there's a possibility that you might actually not be producing milk adequately, and you need to see your physician for the possibility of recommendation of alternatives, or to find out the reasons why you might not be lactating adequately. So yes, there is a minority of mothers who will have that condition where they're not producing enough breast milk. So try. The more you actually breastfeed, the more milk is produced. And so mothers who do mixed feeding, there's a tendency that they won't lactate adequately because they're doing half breastfeeding, half formula. So that can be problematic.
I was going to ask if there was any downside to combining breast milk and formula, actually. Besides not producing enough breast milk, is there any other downside?
Yes. So for mothers who have HIV, they're discouraged from doing mixed feeding, such that we don't want them to mix formula and breast milk at the same time, because formula, which is cow's milk usually, formula could also be goat's milk, formula could also be soy-based. These milks tend to cause some micro injuries to the guts of the babies, and this makes the intestine the vessels in the intestine a bit open, such that the HIV particles can find their way into the bloodstream of the baby. And so we always say either you exclusively breastfeed or you give only formula, never mix. So for the mother who is HIV positive, we're happy to let you do only formula or only exclusive breastfeeding. Even though here in Nigeria, we recommend that you do exclusive breastfeeding even as an HIV positive mother, because formula can be quite pricey. And so if child is finishing, 18 of formula within 3 days, that means probably going through about 16 or so within a month. And if you think our minimum wage is what? 20,000 naira. By the time you spend 15,000 naira on formula in a month, what is now left for everybody else? The other people, they use 400 naira to make soup now that will last for 5 days. So those are all the issues surrounding, mixed feeding. But other than that, I think exclusive breastfeeding, of course, is still advocated.
And still on that, the diet of the mother, can it affect the amount of milk she's producing?
In terms of quantity, the diet of the mother is very important. The diet doesn't, the type of, or the quality and the composition of the diet doesn't really affect the quantity of the breast milk. It could affect the quality. What I'd say is very important really is hydration. So it's very important for the mother to stay well hydrated. And a mother who isn't eating adequately, I think, will probably not lactate adequately because she's hungry, not necessarily because, and hunger really does have a way of just messing up with one's emotional status. So it's very important that a mother eats adequately and then eats the right things. So avoid junk, avoid excessively sugary things, make sure they are eating fruits, vegetables, and whole grain, whole foods. And those really help with the quality of the breast milk, high in protein, great healthy fats. And so that helps with making sure that the breast milk contains a significant amount of, great nutrients. I mean, breast milk, even when the mother is malnourished, breast milk does have a way of actually still trying to give the child whatever it is that the mother has. So there's no overemphasizing how important a balanced diet for a mother is. But ultimately, it probably isn't the most significant factor in determining how well a mother lactates. Hydration and the mother's mental status and state of calm and relaxation are probably more important than a bowl of egusi.
You just have to go there. And there are some mothers who say, okay, this thing that I have eaten, my child will eat it through my breast milk. Is it true that the babies taste whatever it is that the mothers eat through the breast milk?
So there's some truth to it, because when a mother consumes a particular food, the food, of course, is digested and then broken down into its constituent parts. And some of these parts, because at the end of the day, flavors really are proteins and chemicals that our taste buds interpret to our brains. And some of these particles or some of these chemicals maintain their essence even in the bloodstream. And so when that circulates in the blood, it actually comes out in the breast milk, and the babies they won't get the full taste of your father's sauce, but they'll get hints of, the oils and the difference. So the oils from the pepper, the oils from the palm oil, they'll get those essences on their tongue. And so it does have some degree of truth to it. It won't be the full flavor, but the child will get the essence of the taste. However, some others have asked me that, so if I drink too much sugar, does it come out in my breast milk? So no, it doesn't. The sugar in the breast milk is lactose, and so your body would have broken down the sugar that you consumed into its minutest forms, and then to reconstitute it into the sugar in milk, which is called lactose. And lactose isn't very sweet, actually. If anyone has tried it, lactose is quite lactose is quite bland, actually. It's not like sucrose and it's not like glucose, which are quite sweet. Lactose is relatively bland. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right then. Well, Since we're speaking of the taste, is it true that when a mother is on medication, she's taking some particular drugs, or just generally, she shouldn't breastfeed?
And so it's not a general rule that everyone who is on medication should not breastfeed. There are very specific drugs for which we instruct mothers not to breastfeed. And there are a large number of such drugs. And so the duty is for the physician who is prescribing the drugs to the nursing mother to say, okay, you can't breastfeed at all, or you have to use this drug at least 1 hour or 2 hours before breastfeeding, or you cannot breastfeed for 6 hours after using this drug. So there are certain rules that apply to different drugs. Some it's an entire, contraindication, say no. But for some others, it's like, well, you can, but just with caution. So, and sometimes you might actually say that, okay, you know what, the benefits of giving this drug outweighs the risk, and we'll just say, you know what, just don't breastfeed, look for formula, and then start formula for the meantime. And so it really is a juggling act, and you have to speak to your physician who is prescribing the drug for you.
Okay, for mothers who go through a CS section and they can't, maybe they are tired, or they just can't in that moment, so formula is okay.
So no, even when they've undergone a cesarean section, and I know this is a very difficult subject for quite a lot of people, in the sense that sometimes if the cesarean section has been planned, we call that an elective cesarean section, such that right from a very early stage in the pregnancy, the mom knew that she was going to have a cesarean section, then she really should begin to discuss feeding options and how soon she can put her baby to the breast as soon as she is delivered. Because in some situations, or in some, where staff is adequate, what happens is that while the mother is still there on the operation table, she is giving the baby, and the baby is put to her breast even while she is actually on the operation table, such that lactation has begun, or at least the process of establishing lactation has begun even before she moves to the recovery room. Yes, she might be a little bit woozy from a lot of pain medication that she might be administered, but when she does recover from all that, then there is she has already established that bond, and she has already begun the process of establishing lactation, and so that just continues when she wakes up. It really is a mindset thing. So one has got to actually begin to tell the mothers right from the time that they're interacting that, look, as soon as your baby is born, what is recommended is that baby should be put to the breast within 1 hour of delivery, regardless of the mode of delivery. But it doesn't happen in a lot of places because staff is inadequate. The mothers are rather tired, and like, you know what? But the mothers, you brought an entire different human being right into this world. The child didn't ask to be born. And so the duty is on you to make sure that you do right by the baby. Some mothers actually don't want to see the baby as soon as the baby is born via CS. They're like, you know what, please, I'm somebody's child too. Let me organize my mind first. And then you can now bring the baby later. And so they'd have had formula in the bag, in the delivery bag, right from the time that they're coming from the house. They don't buy formula, so that when the baby is born like this, they're just handing the formula over to the nurses. Do the needful, please. I do not want to be disturbed, but please, exclusive breastfeeding is what we recommend, not formula, even if it is cesarean section delivery.
Thank you. And that goes to everyone who gives glucose to the baby too. Please do not, I believe.
Yes, I agree with you. No glucose, please. No glucose water.
And yes, also that goes to those who tell you to buy it. If there is no need for glucose water, why do they include it in the list of some mothers?
So this is where I'm going to, harass healthcare workers, because I think it's a healthcare worker thing. I don't know how glucose water became the alternative to breast milk when, for some reason, lactation is not initiated, on time. It is wrong. It's a wrong practice, and is the healthcare workers, I think, that are to blame for this. I don't know how it began, but it's something that I would not be sad to see go.
Yes. So in case you want glucose for yourself, just ask the mother, I want glucose. Stop telling them to buy it. That's just my own take on it. We'll take the last breather, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping up the conversation on breastfeeding, separating the myths from the fact. My guest is Dr. Ayodele Renner. We have about 4 minutes more.
Okay, great. Well done. This has been nice.
You said?
You said, great. Well done. This has been nice.
Yeah, thank you.
On August
for your comedy-infused explanation. I'm sure that's one of the reasons your people like to come around you. Like you're always cracking them up. Delivering the
there's too much.
there's
too much stress everywhere, so somebody has got to look for something to laugh about.
Only on Airtel TV. Simply download the Airtel TV app, iOS or Play Store. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Poe. This is Poe. This is Poe. Music to me is life and death. Music to me is breathing. Music to me is food, water, sleep. Music to me is expression. The most important kind of expression is self-expression.
Feel the music.
Love music, love life. Smooth 98.1.
Feel the music every time by listening to us here on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. We're talking about breastfeeding, and the conversation is about separating the fact from the meat here. And my guest is Dr. Ayodele Renner. He's a consultant pediatrician. We have talked about so much. So if you have missed out or you're just joining the show, do not worry. We're streaming live on YouTube. We will save the video for you so that you go back, watch it, and share it with somebody, especially a grandmother who's very insistent on their practices that the ancestors lined up for them and gave and handed over to them. And I know that's one of the specialty of Dr. Renner. He's always battling the grandmothers. And speaking of grandmothers, there is something you talked about on your page, how they are very insistent on having that first bath with local sponge and maybe scrubbing the heck out of the baby's skin. When
Yes.
that thing is supposed to, whatever it is that it came out of the womb with, it's supposed to remain on them. Please shed more light on it.
Okay, so there's a substance on the baby's skin that we call vernix caseosa. And vernix is a mixture of skin cells, it's a mixture of a little bit of hair, and just mainly skin cells anyway, and some sebaceous secretions, some fatty, oily secretions from the baby's skin. And some babies are covered with, it's like a white cheesy material. Some babies are covered quite extensively with it when they're born, and some babies don't even have it at all. But for those that do, it can be quite a lot. But what we realize is that's actually protective. It helps to moisturize the skin of the baby. It actually helps to prevent infections in the baby as well. So it's quite important, in the skin, in the care of the skin of the baby. But somehow, I believe that the ancients thought that this substance might actually not be as wholesome as we've now realized it is. And so what they do is that they get, because it's quite tenacious, it's very difficult to get rid of it. But one way in which one can get rid of it is by actually rubbing an oil on it. And so the oil that was available to us, I imagine, was palm oil. And so palm oil was something that they used to get rid of the vernix from the skin. And somehow the wooden sponge came into play because palm oil is hard to get off the skin of anyone. If you've ever bathed yourself in palm oil from head to toe, you know that it is only a very, very strong sponge that will get palm oil off your skin. And so that's, I guess, how the very tough sponge came into play in the lives of babies. But that being said, while these practices are not really based in any concrete scientific evidence, it's tradition that makes the grandmothers happy. And as long as, they are doing the scrubbing gently, you can use your iron sponge, you can rub the palm oil. I have no strong objections to that because palm oil actually isn't harmful to the baby. But what I always caution about is that always be gentle. The wooden sponge, make sure that it's soaked for as long as possible, and rub the skin as gently as you can, because at the end of the day, sometimes the social aspect of the situation is that if you now tell your mother-in-law, your mother that you absolutely cannot do this, then she's going to be upset, and you'll be upset, and it will affect your general mental state. But there are those things that one has to draw the line on, like giving herbal concoctions. That's an absolute no-no. Throwing the baby up and down, that's an absolute no-no. The excessive massaging where the arms are bent to the back and then the legs are bent forward so that the child is more flexible, so the child can scrub his back at the end of the day. No, that's also wrong. And there's no evidence that excessive scrubbing prevents body odor later in life. Body odor later in life is prevented by good personal hygiene, not by palm oil at birth. Yeah.
You went all in, but thank you very much for the enlightenment. And the last one is, for how long should you breastfeed a child? And I am saying that because there were some who say if you breastfeed a child for a year, it will be so hard to wean the baby.
Again, it's quite a varied, it's a mixed, it's a potpourri of experiences for different mothers. And it isn't true that if you were to exclusively breastfeed your baby, then weaning them would be difficult. There are some people who have, those sorts of personalities where, yes, they want to stay on the breast for as long as they can, even with, 18 teeth in their mouths and, biting the breast. They still want to hang on tenaciously. But what I'd say is that begin to introduce your child to semi-solid foods from 6 months. And WHO recommends that we actually breastfeed our babies up till 2 years, of course, while giving semi-solid food starting from 6 months. But you, the mother, needs to decide, and that's a recommendation. You don't have to get up to 2 years. You can actually stop earlier. Decide when you want to stop and then begin to gradually tail off. Because some mothers want to wean off and they want to wean off in a week. It can be quite difficult. So if you want to wean off, try to wean off over 2 to 3 months, such that you are gradually reducing the frequency of the breastfeeding, so that by the time you think you are ready to stop, then you stop. Some mothers go cold turkey and, it's war and fight, but eventually they achieve it. But somehow that can be quite challenging for everyone in the home. So please make it as gradual as possible.
Thank you. Now, before I let you go, it is Saturday. A mother out there is preparing to deworm her children. When should you start deworming your children, and what is the frequency?
So deworming should start at 1 year and it should happen every 6 months, at least until the child is 5 years of age. Even though WHO actually doesn't even put a ceiling or a cap on deworming in this part of the world where the prevalence of soil-transmitted worm infections is quite high. Because we've got worms everywhere. There's open defecation everywhere here in in our country. The soil is a bit contaminated. So you really, even into adulthood, you should actually be deworming yourself every 6 months. I haven't done it in probably 5 years or so, and I still haven't seen any. I still haven't seen any worm in my toilet, as it were. But maybe I should. But yes, so starting from 1 year, every 6 months is what is recommended.
Thank you so much for the wealth of knowledge you've shared with us this morning. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Seun.
And I look forward to more conversations as always.
Thank you.
Now you can catch up with us and of course go back to watch the video. You're searching for #SoulFood981 breastfeeding, separating the myths from the fact. I also will put it up on our WhatsApp status so that you just click and go watch the video. Also, please share it with somebody. In the meantime, you can follow and of course check out Dr. Renner on Instagram. It is at the Noisy Naija Pediatrician. I'm correct, right?
Yes, that's correct.
The pediatrician with the loudspeaker, that is his logo, the Noisy Naija Pediatrician on Instagram. Thank you, and thank you. Do have a pleasant Saturday.
Thanks, Seun. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye. All right, the show continues, and you know that the kids have to actually come around, kids between the ages of 6 to 15, because the show next is Curious Minds. You're listening to Breakfast in Bed here on Smooth 98.1.
98.1.
Once upon a time.
Thank you so much for watching.